Hey, in this video, we're going to have a look at the Mazda CX-6e. This is Mazda's brand new electric SUV based on the Chang'an platform that it shares with the Deepal SO7. So we're going to have a look at the new design of the car, how it compares to the Deepal, its donor car, and basically discuss the future of the electric platform for Mazda, who have been moving into the electric space with initially the MX-30, and then they've had the 6E also share with Chang'an, but the future might be different. So we'll have a look at all those details. Let's start first with some of the key specs here. So as I said, it's developed in joint partnership with Chang'an, a Chinese manufacturer. They've had this partnership for a pretty long time. China is obviously ahead in terms of electric vehicles. They've had many iterations now of electric cars coming through and developing at a mass rate, which basically Mazda are far behind and they don't want to be caught out by competitors. So they're leveraging their existing networks with Chang'an to try and basically enter the field. It's only a matter of time before they develop their own platform, which rumors say is coming in 2027. In terms of its specs, it's got 190 kilowatts, 0 to 100 is 7.9 seconds, top speed of 185 kilometers per hour. So nothing mind-blowing here. They're pretty run-of-the-mill specs, not too quick compared to even something like a Tesla Model Y, which is surprising. You would think that with an electric platform, it would be a little bit quicker than that, something maybe at the mid 5 seconds at least. But potentially Mazda's customers don't really care about this as long as it drives pretty well, still has all the interior features it needs, and they still like the styling. Mazda claims a range of 483 kilometers, which again is okay. We're seeing cars like the new Volvo EX60, the BMW iX3, they have electric ranges of over 800 kilometers. And although this isn't going to be a direct competitor to those cars, it is a little bit lower down in terms of its price range. You still expect it to be at least in the 600-kilometer range. So it is a little bit disappointing that it is that low. Hopefully, over time, if they make updates to this vehicle, we'll see that range increase as well. It supports fast charging up to 195 kilowatts, 10 to 80% in about 24 minutes. Nothing special. Again, pretty run-of-the-mill stuff. The real interesting aspect of this car, however, is probably the interior, which, like the 6C, is a big departure from what Mazda's been doing in the last few years, where it still had a very traditional approach with a good mix of buttons and digital interfaces. But this interior has a 26-inch ultra-wide display, so a 32:9 aspect ratio. Basically, you've got the passenger display and the driver's display all merged into one, which is very interesting. Normally, you see some sort of separation there, like with the recent Audi models. Maybe it saves a little bit of cost having it all in one unit, but it does look quite out of place compared to Mazda vehicles of the past. There's no traditional instrument cluster as well. It's all going to be in a heads-up display, which again is probably fine as long as there's something in front of the driver. You don't want it all Tesla-like where everything's either centralized or away from the immediate view of the driver. At least it's a heads-up display, although it is probably a little bit sad that they don't have a traditional instrument cluster like they used to there. Some interesting other features. It's got 23 speakers. So this includes unique speakers, which are integrated directly into the front headrests. This localizes things like navigation commands. So if you're driving and you want to hear the directions rather than the music cutting out, then the navigation instruction is going to come directly through the speakers itself, which I think is probably a pretty good feature there. In terms of practicality, it looks like it's only going to offer around 468 liters of space in its boot. This is compared to 570 liters of the Mazda CX-60, which is actually shorter and narrower in dimensions. So it's probably the fact that it's got the batteries as well that's taking up some of that space. So it's a bit disappointing. It's not the most practical car, but maybe it makes up for it in terms of the stylings, which we'll get to now. So the exterior is quite nice. It's a continuation of the Mazda Kodo philosophy that I've had for, I would say, over a decade now. but it is evolved a little bit more for the new electric generation. You can see here, this front grille is all closed off. It's a little slimmer than previous iterations of the Kodo grille, which makes sense. This is just for radars, sensors, things like that. So it's not really for bringing in air into the vehicle at all. It's pretty much just for digital interfaces and safety systems. So it does look very sleek here. It's nice flowing design into the headlamps, but not really headlamps here. They're actually the daytime running lights. And you've got the main units down here, which it's a split headlight treatment like we've seen with a lot of cars these days. But I think Mazda have really integrated it well. It's not just a simple square or rectangle. You've got that traditional Mazda wing, which evokes the badge that you've got here. But otherwise, quite simple at the front, very sleek. I love this color. This purple color is beautiful. Definitely has a pearlescent feel to it. So it probably changes its color a little bit depending on the lighting there. The wheels, as you can see, they're massive, really fill out the wheel arches as well. I think they really nailed the side profile. Extremely clean design, basically no creases at all. You just got one crisp shoulder line that comes across over the door handles here and into the tail lamps. You've got very flush door handles for aerodynamic purposes. It's really just a beautifully done side profile. You've got a blacked out roof line as well as a blacked out lower section here, as well as wheel arches, which really they're trying to reduce the visual height like you see with a lot of different EV cars. And they've done a fantastic job here. I just think they've nailed the side profile. It's as good as I've seen in any electric SUV. It doesn't feel like it's too bulky, too high. It doesn't feel like they've stripped it back so much that it's devoid of any character. Somehow with the way they've sculpted this, you can still see how the light interplays with the side profile. It gives a bit of depth there. It doesn't feel like it's just fully slab-sided like you see with some vehicles where they've tried to remove a lot of the previous details that you might see in a side profile of a car. If you go a little more into these wheels here, you can see they've got kind of etches in the spokes, probably because of aerodynamic reasons. They've blocked out some of these parts here, but they've done it in a very tasteful manner. I think a lot better than the likes of Tesla, where it just looks like a basic hubcap. They've really thought about how this should look aesthetically as well as serving aerodynamic purposes. They've done a fantastic job here. Really beautiful wheels. This looks like it's got a diamond cut finish here as well. As we move on to the rear view of the vehicle, I think this is probably the weakest side of the car. It's not bad by any means, but it's very upright here. It doesn't really have the detailing that you've seen in other Mazda SUVs. I think it just feels a bit static. It doesn't feel like it really kind of flows with the rest of the car. It almost looks a bit fridge-like with how upright it is. I think it would help if they moved the number plate there so there's something filling up the space. But you can see it's got that Mazda lettering as well all throughout here. You've got the tail lamps that are almost full length, like you've seen in a lot of different vehicles, and that element where it's got one element going here and another carrying here that you've seen on a few Mazda cars in the last, let's say, 10 years or so. With the side profile, I love how they've carved the Mazda lettering into the side skirts. That's a unique look that I've never really seen before. It definitely doesn't look like any other car, despite sharing some of its underpinnings with decal. I don't think you can really complain that even though they've had to go down this route where they're sharing parts with Chang'an or Deepal, in this case, I think if you told the average punter or asked them, what car do you think this is, they would say it's a Mazda and they wouldn't confuse it for anything else. So yeah, this isn't just another badge engineering job. They've shared technology where they've had to, but I think they've done an overall good job in making sure that it feels like a Mazda and really taking forward the design as well to the next era of the Kodo design language. I think overall, the exterior, they've done a great job. Rear end probably isn't my favorite, but it's not the worst that I've seen as well. So good job, Mazda, with the design of the CX-6e. The interior is probably going to be the most controversial part of this car. I think they've definitely tried to design this in a way where it's the Chinese market first. The manufacturers tell us they love massive screens, they love technology, and you can see that here with this car. They've really gone to town with the screen. Instead of rear view mirrors, you've got cameras and then screens embedded onto the sides. Maybe not the best positioning and probably won't be available in all markets, but it's not the worst integration I've ever seen of this technology. The steering wheel is nicely done. It's a very new age Mazda steering wheel, thin rim, Mazda lettering instead of the Mazda logo. I think you've got real buttons here, even though it's got a piano black finish, which isn't the best, but it's fine. But I just think it's a nice looking steering wheel. And as far as two-spoke steering wheels go, I think they've done a great job. Usually these can look a little strange. It can be hit or miss with the design, but I think this looks luxurious, looks classy. It looks very Mazda. I think they've nailed all three things there. The interior color here is also very interesting. It's a purple finish, which is awesome to match it with the exterior design. They've done a great job here. It's not a color you would normally think or associate with cars. You probably saw these types of finishes in the 50s or 40s, but these days manufacturers like to stick more with your blacks, grays. Sometimes you'll get a brown or a cognac type finish if they're feeling a bit experimental. But yeah, you never see these sort of colors, and they're doing a great job. It doesn't feel garish at all. It feels pretty awesome. So yeah, great job there. But the elephant in the room is, of course, this massive display. And I just don't think they've done the best job integrating it. It just looks like it's tacked on here. It really doesn't feel like they've made any effort to make it part of what is otherwise a very beautiful and well done interior. You can see another angle here as well. It just sticks out like a sore thumb. It's okay to have big screens, but you want it to feel like it's part of the interior and not just thrown in there. I just don't think they've done the best job there. But it's cool to see that it is one continuous display rather than having a bezel that separates the two. Whether a passenger necessarily needs to have another screen in front of them is another whole idea. Let me know what you think. Do you think as a passenger you would want something else to play with? Of course, you can access your own air conditioning controls here, but it was never that difficult to control air conditioning from the center display. And perhaps you can access other apps where you can view your own content. On most drives, especially with an electric car, these aren't going to be hugely long drives. So people can find their own entertainment without needing to look at another screen in a car, I think. Otherwise, that interior is really beautiful. You can see the seats, how wonderfully designed they are. You've got those hidden speakers that provide more personal sound, especially when you've got music and navigation going. Got that Mazda lettering below the headrest. Beautiful two-tone look as well with the purple finish, perforated leather, a white finish up top. You've got Mazda lettering again. They really love this Mazda lettering everywhere in this car. They've got it at the back of the seats too. And you've got rear aircon controls for passengers. Overall, it's a lovely interior. It's a lovely exterior. It's just a screen situation that's a little bit odd. I get that they need to cater to modern times, maybe the market as well. But I think it's odd. They've gone so far in one direction where previously they were so intent on having buttons, so intent on not even having touchscreens at one point and having a rotary dial controlling the functionality. And I've gone completely in the other direction, which you can only think is because it's sharing some sort of platform with the Chinese cars. Although the new Mazda CX-5 does have a similar type of screen technology. So potentially it's a strategic decision as well, and they've just given up on their previous approach. So let's have a look now at how it compares to its D-PAL donor car. So this is the equivalent D-PAL here, the S07. You can really see how different it is as a car. This is still a nice looking car for sure, but it just looks like another generic run-of-the-mill SUV. The way Mazda have stepped it up here, especially in the front end, that iconic Kodo grille, the way they've done that here really stands out, especially the way they lights up the whole front section, the Mazda wing, as well as the daytime running lights. It really completes the look and looks fantastic. A rear end here is a bit different. I think the rear end of the D-PAL looks a little bit nicer integrated, if a bit generic. Still a nice looking car, the D-PAL, but I think the Mazda for sure is the winner here in terms of overall styling. Especially in this color, they've really just nailed it. Yeah, overall, I think this is a much needed car for Mazda. An electric SUV is something they need to compete with the Model Y, Polestar as well. a number of other hybrid electric vehicles coming out from manufacturers. We'll see how well it does, particularly in the European and Australian markets. Hopefully, for Mazda's sake, it does well enough that they'll invest in another electric vehicle in 2027, eventually another SUV based on their own platform. Clearly, you can see Mazda still has the talent there for design, inside and out, attention to detail. They've really stepped it up on the luxury side of things with the interior. They're just a little bit behind in electric technology, and you can definitely see that with some of the specs there, with the range, the power. So hopefully the performance improves in the future. Good to see Mazda moving in this direction. So yeah, if you like this video, feel free to subscribe, give it a like, and can hear what you think about this new car.